Welcome to the Paths We Take podcast. I'm your host, Jordan DeSange. Let's hit a path. What a privilege it is to be able to move our bodies, to be able to spend the time to move our bodies, to be able to travel to move our bodies. It is an absolute privilege to be a runner, to be a Hyrox athlete, to be able to go to the gym. Um, it's just an all-around privilege, and I think that has gotten forgotten. Hey there, and welcome back to The Paths We Take. Today is going to be a solo episode. It is going to be a shorter solo episode. I just wanted to spend 5-10 minutes talking about just some thoughts that I had during my Sunday long run. And one of those thoughts was the privilege of being able to run. I think a lot of us take for granted or forget that it is a privilege to run. Now, for me, this thought came because Thursday evening, there was a race at Victoria Park here in Adelaide. And essentially, the performance that I brought to that race wasn't as good as I knew I could have done. But I was on the drive home for 10 minutes, just like dwelling and feeling bad about myself and frustrated about not running fast. And immediately caught myself and thought, I can't believe that I was just in that mindset, because it was an absolute privilege to be out there, to be racing. And how absolutely dumb is it to be upset about not running fast? Like, I'm sorry, that is just the stupidest thing, in my opinion, to be upset and to waste your time and your mindset and energy on. For me, running should bring joy. Running should add to my life. I don't ever want running to take away. And I don't want things like that feeling, for example, to be what running is. I don't want to be upset about not running fast, quote unquote, because at the end of the day, that doesn't matter at all. Running fast doesn't matter. And I think being somebody who has in the past had running taken away from me, I guess my perspective is a lot different on running these days, because I couldn't run for about 4 months. And that came basically overnight. I always feel like recently I've been trying to really um, figure out what running means to me a little bit more, because it's hard to describe. My relationship with running has changed dramatically over the last since 2023, since um, I was in the emergency department, since I couldn't run. Even this last year, it's kind of like a hybrid between performance and, running for fun or to build connection or relationships. Like, I'm finding it hard to describe and to articulate kind of this hybrid now, because 5 years ago it was for performance. My goal was time. My goal was to get faster. My goal was, this race, that race. And yes, I still have goals like that, but running is so much more for me now. And I just feel like a lot of us are one way or the other. It's either performance, and then we forget about how it's actually a privilege to be out there, to be spending our time running, racing, to be able to afford to fly to this state or oversee to be able to run in a race. And for someone like myself, for example, if I flew somewhere, ran a marathon, didn't perform as well as I could have, and then was upset about it after, like, again, I think that's just the stupidest thing ever, because, like, it's a privilege to be out there. And I think that's something that we've forgotten. when it comes to anything really. It doesn't need to be running. I think anything in the fitness space, it's a privilege to, Hyrox is blown up, for example, the last few years. And it's a privilege to be able, if you're here in Australia, to be able to fly to Brisbane and race in Hyrox, afford a hotel, accommodation, to be eating out, like it's a privilege to be able to do that. And for you and for people to go somewhere and be so upset about a result, I think is just absolutely ridiculous and just funny, in my opinion. Um, I think, again, for me, running is, I'm trying to really reflect on what running means to me because I think it's important. I think for me to be able to continue with running, and I've been running since I was a kid, basically, in little athletics and then cross country, and then I did shorter distance, and now I tend to do the longer distance runs. And for me to continue it, because ultimately that's what I want to do, I want to be able to run when I'm 80. I think really understanding what running does for me is going to allow me to do that. And that's why, again, I've been really trying the last few months even to really like be a bit more vocal about running is not necessarily about speed all the time. It's not necessarily about a time all the time. It's about the experience that we get out of going for a run, the experience that we get for, you know, going to an event. Because at the end of the day, when I think back to some of my favorite marathons, it wasn't, Gold Coast Marathon last year is probably my favorite run that I've done in the last 5 years. And that wasn't because of the time that I ran. That was because the atmosphere was amazing. The crowd was amazing. I had an amazing time with my friends up there. It was just a good weekend, and that's a privilege. Um, I think I've struggled talking about that kind of stuff despite it being so important because in the back of my mind, I've always been like, oh, well, what if people are like, oh, he's only saying all of this because he can't run at that tempo, or he doesn't know what it's like to train super hard, or he doesn't get it. But like, I get it. I've trained at double sessions 3 days a week. I've run, you know, quote unquote fast pace. I know what it's like to put in the work to train hard. Um, and I feel despite all of that, I still know that running is so much more than just the pace that you can run at, or the speed that you can run at, or the time that you can achieve at a marathon or a 5K run or whatever. I think that conversation is still important. And again, I've struggled bringing that up because I thought, oh, well, maybe people think that I can't, but I can. That's why I'm bringing this up, because despite all of that, despite me understanding how hard it is to run at a certain pace, how hard it is to put in the work, how hard it is to run 6, 7 days a week, 2 times a day, I do all of that. I've done all of that. Um, and again, on top, like, I still understand the importance of really understanding what running does for you. So I think that's what I wanted to make this episode on, just like what your activity does for you. And I think it's going to be very important for people to sit down and really think about their answer there, because if your answer is, oh, well, you know, being an elite athlete is my identity, or running a sub 3 marathon is my identity, or, whatever, like if it's a tangible thing like that, I think, I don't know, in my opinion, I think that's a bit sad because the activity that you do is so much more than that, really. And I think for you to really, like, if you really love running, for example, and you want to do it longer term and you want to do it for the rest of your life, you're not going to do that if it's only based on time or this and that, because things are going to happen, like you're going to get injured or you're going to age. And when you can't hit these times and things like that, like, are you still going to do the activity? Like, I think movement is important. And my whole thing is being able to move, stay moving, and I want people to continue to move. That's why I became a physio all those years ago, is because I really want people to be able to move and not let things stop them from moving. And I think one thing that can stop you from moving is falling out of love with your activity. And one way to fall out of love with the activity is only basing it on these performance metrics. Um, I'm gonna stop rambling. That is the solo episode for today. Um, Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you in the next Paths We Take podcast.